Imagine you've just survived the end of the world. Your city is burned, your government is gone, and the superpowers of the age have crushed everything you know. You are part of the tiny, fragile group left behind to pick up the pieces. You finally have a moment of peace, a governor appointed to keep order, and a chance to rebuild. And then, in one dinner party, it all goes up in flames.
It sounds like the plot of a post-apocalyptic thriller, doesn't it? But this is exactly where we find ourselves in the book of Jeremiah, chapters 41 through 45. It is a study in absolute chaos. We are looking at political assassination, a hostage crisis, and perhaps the most tragic decision in the history of the exile, the decision to run back to the very place their ancestors escaped from.
It really is a downward spiral. We left off previously with Jerusalem destroyed. The Babylonians have appointed a man named Gedaliah as governor over the remnant, the poor people left in the land. It seemed like there was a glimmer of hope, right? A chance for stability?
Exactly. Gedaliah was the stabilizer. He was a moderate. He told the people, "Look, just serve the king of Babylon. Farm your fields, gather your wine and oil, and you'll live." And for a moment, it worked. Refugees started coming back from nearby countries. There was food, there was peace. But peace is fragile when you have radical ideology involved.
Enter Ishmael. And we aren't talking about Moby Dick here. Who was this guy?
Ishmael was bad news. He was of royal blood, which is a key detail. He likely felt entitled to rule, and he probably viewed Gedaliah as a collaborator, a traitor working for the Babylonians. But Ishmael doesn't come with an army. He comes with treachery. He arrives at Mizpah with 10 men, pretending to come in friendship. They sit down to eat bread with the governor.
Which in that culture is a sacred act. Breaking bread is a treaty of peace.
Precisely. And in the middle of the meal, Ishmael and his men stand up and butcher Gedaliah. It's a political decapitation. But it doesn't stop there. This is where the story gets incredibly dark. Ishmael slaughters the Jews who were with Gedaliah, and even the Babylonian soldiers stationed there. It's a massacre.
And then there's that horrifying scene the next day. A group of 80 pilgrims shows up, right?
This part is gut-wrenching. 80 men come from the north, Shechem, Shiloh, Samaria. They are in mourning, beards shaved, clothes torn, bringing offerings to the site of the ruined temple. They are just worshippers. Ishmael goes out to meet them, weeping fake tears, pretending to be grieving too. He lures them into the city, and then he slaughters them.
Why? That's the part I don't get. Killing the governor is political, killing the soldiers is tactical. But why slaughter 80 grieving pilgrims?
It shows the absolute moral vacuum of Ishmael. It's terror for the sake of terror. He throws their bodies into a massive cistern, a pit originally built for water during a war centuries prior. Now it's a mass grave. Though there is one small, almost dark comedic moment here. 10 of the men save their own lives by bribing him. They yell out, "Don't kill us! We have wheat, barley, oil, and honey hidden in a field."
It's survival of the richest.
In a way, yes. Ishmael takes the bribe and spares them. Then he rounds up the rest of the people in Mizpah, including the king's daughters, and tries to drag them off to the Ammonites. He's essentially kidnapping the remnant to use as leverage.
But he doesn't get far. The other military leaders, led by a man named Johanan, hear about the atrocity. They chase Ishmael down.
Right. They catch him by the great pool in Gibeon. The captives see Johanan and are overjoyed. They turn around and run to their rescuers. Ishmael, being the coward he is, escapes with just 8 men. But now, Johanan is left with a massive problem. The governor is dead. The Babylonian garrison is dead.
And Babylon doesn't take kindly to their appointed officials being murdered?
Not at all. Johanan and the people are terrified. They are convinced that when Nebuchadnezzar hears about this, he's going to come back and wipe them all out. So they move the whole group near Bethlehem, poised to flee south. They want to go to Egypt.
This feels like such a pivotal moment. They are standing at the crossroads. Stay in the land God gave them, or run to Egypt for safety. And this leads us to chapter 42, which I think is one of the most frustrating chapters in the entire Bible.
It is the definition of hypocrisy. They approach Jeremiah. Remember, Jeremiah has been dragged along with them. They say to him, "Please, pray to your God for us. Ask him where we should go and what we should do."
Their language is so pious. They say, whether it is good or bad, we will obey the voice of the Lord. They sound like they are ready to surrender completely.
They sound perfect. But notice the delay. Jeremiah prays, and he doesn't get an answer immediately. It takes 10 days.
10 days. Imagine the tension in that camp. Every day wondering if the Babylonian army is on the horizon. Why the wait?
It's a test of patience, perhaps. Or maybe God was letting their true intentions marinate. When the word finally comes, it is crystal clear. God says, "If you stay in this land, I will build you up and not tear you down. Do not be afraid of the king of Babylon. I am with you."
It's a promise of safety. It's exactly what they needed to hear. I will make the Babylonians have mercy on you.
But then comes the warning. It's vivid. God says, "But if you set your faces to go to Egypt, thinking you will find peace and bread there, you will die." He lists 3 things: sword, famine, pestilence. He tells them that the very things they are running from will catch up to them in Egypt.
So the choice is faith in God's promise versus trust in their own political calculation. And in chapter 43, we see their response.
It's instant denial. Azariah and Johanan look Jeremiah in the face and say, "You are lying. God didn't send you to say this."
They even have a conspiracy theory. They blame his scribe. They say, Baruch has turned you against us to hand us over to the Babylonians.
It's absurd. Jeremiah has spent 40 years telling them Babylon would win. Why would he need Baruch to turn him? But this is what fear does. It rationalizes disobedience. They didn't want advice. They wanted validation. When the advice didn't match their plan, they rejected the source. So they pack up everyone, men, women, children, the princesses, and they force Jeremiah and Baruch to go with them.
They drag the prophet of God back to Egypt. It's a reverse exodus. God brought them out of Egypt to the promised land. Now they are dragging God's word back into slavery.
That is the profound tragedy of it. They arrive in Tahpanhes, a border city in Egypt, and immediately God tells Jeremiah to perform another sign act. He has to take large stones and bury them in the clay pavement at the entrance of Pharaoh's palace.
What's the symbolism there?
He says, "I will send for Nebuchadnezzar, my servant, and he will set his throne right over these stones." It's God saying, "You ran to Egypt to escape Babylon? I'm bringing Babylon to Egypt." You cannot outrun God's judgment.
It's relentless. You'd think once they got to Egypt and settled, maybe they'd keep a low profile. But chapter 44 shows us they did the exact opposite. They didn't just move, they assimilated.
This is the theological climax of the section. Jeremiah confronts them because they are burning incense to other gods again. He asks them, "Why are you doing this? Don't you remember that this idolatry is exactly why Jerusalem was destroyed?"
And their response? Honestly, it's shocking. It's one of the most pragmatic atheistic arguments in Scripture. The women speak up, supported by their husbands, and they say, "We aren't listening to you. When we worshiped the Queen of Heaven, we had plenty of food and we were well off. But since we stopped and listened to you, we've had nothing but sword and famine."
It is a stunning admission. They viewed their relationship with God as a vending machine. We put in coins, we get bread. They completely misinterpreted their history. They thought their prosperity in the past was because of their idols, not because of God's patience. They are saying, idolatry worked better for us than fidelity.
It's confirmation bias. They look at the disaster of the siege and blame it on stopping the idol worship rather than the worship itself.
Exactly. And Jeremiah has to tell them, "No, the reason your land is a smoking ruin is precisely because God could no longer bear your behavior." He tells them that because they have sworn to worship these idols, God swears by his own name that he will no longer let them even speak his name. He's cutting them off. He tells them they will be consumed in Egypt, and only a tiny handful of refugees will ever escape.
It's a dark ending to the narrative of the people. But the text doesn't end there. Chapter 45 feels like a strange appendix. It jumps back in time, doesn't it?
It does. It flashes back to the 4th year of Jehoiakim, years before the fall of the city. It's a personal oracle directed at Baruch, Jeremiah's faithful scribe.
We've mentioned him a few times. He's the guy writing all this down. And clearly, he was struggling.
He was burned out. Baruch says, "Woe is me! The Lord has added sorrow to my pain. I am weary with groaning and find no rest." Think about it. He's a highly educated man, probably from a noble family, and his career is spent writing down doom and gloom while being hated by everyone. He sees his country collapsing. He probably had dreams of being a high official, a man of status.
And God addresses that ambition directly?
Yes, God says, "Behold, what I have built I am breaking down. And do you seek great things for yourself? Seek them not."
That is such a heavy line. Do not seek great things for yourself.
It's a reality check. God is saying, "Baruch, the whole world is falling apart. The system is crashing. This is not the time to worry about your career advancement or your legacy." But he gives him a promise. He says, "I will give you your life as a prize of war in all places where you go."
Your life as a prize, meaning you aren't getting wealth, you aren't getting fame, but you will survive.
In a time of total destruction, survival is the only victory available. It's a sobering but tender mercy. Baruch wanted great things, but God gave him his life. And ironically, because he stuck with Jeremiah, Baruch did get a legacy. We are reading his words 2,600 years later.
That's a beautiful irony. The man who was told not to seek greatness ended up writing one of the greatest books in history.
It really brings the whole section together. You have the captains like Johanan, who sought safety and control, and they lost everything in Egypt. You have Ishmael, who sought power through violence, and he faded into obscurity. And you have Baruch, who gave up his ambition to serve God in the ruins, and he was the one who was preserved.
It forces us to ask ourselves, when the world feels like it's falling apart, are we running back to Egypt, back to what's comfortable and worldly, or are we willing to stand in the rubble and trust what God says, even if it doesn't make sense politically?
That's the question. The remnant failed the test because they feared the Babylonians more than they revered God. They thought they could outmaneuver judgment, but you can't outrun the story God is writing.
A powerful place to leave it. From the massacre at Mizpah to the idols of Egypt, it's a tragedy of fear. Thanks for walking us through it.
My pleasure. It's a heavy text, but a necessary one.
And thank you for listening. Until next time.
If you have been blessed by this, please like, subscribe, and share this joy with others. God bless.